Hey everyone, this is Debbie from Project 39 Mini Albums. This is part 2 of the tutorial for my Flight of Fancy mini album. There is a walkthrough and there is also part 1. I'll put the links in the description box if you want to go back and check that out. But without any further ado, let's continue working on the back of page 2. All right, we're going to do the back of page 2 now, which is just a pocket with a flap. It's just dimensional, so you can add a lot of little things in there. I guess I could have made it bigger, but I liked having a little bit of room here so that, there's room when the page closes. The album doesn't feel too chunky. And then I liked having some room for the elements. So let me show you how I made it. Very simple. So this is the front of page 2. Here we are at the back of page 2. You'll need 3 pieces of paper. One that is 4.5 by 7 3/8, one that is 5 by 5 3/4, and one that is 5 3/4 by 5. This one I made because I wanted to put the pattern paper on something. I didn't want to just add the flap in the bottom to here. And so that slipped inside. You may find you're going to need to cut it down to get it inside. Just play it by ear and see what you have. All right, the insert we're not going to score at all. The top flap for the pocket is the 5 by 5 3/4 with the 5-inch side at the top. Score at 1/2 and 3/4. And then this one is 4.5 by 7 3/8. So with the 7 3/8 side at the top, you're going to score at 1/2, 3/4, 6 5/8, 6 7/8. We're going to rotate, and the 4.5 side is at the top, and we're going to score at 1/2 and 3/4. Trying to use this new bone folder. This came from I was involved in a Country Craft Creations retreat, and this was one of the things in the goodie bag that you got. It is a tonic nonstick bone folder. It's thinner than the other one I purchased from Country Craft Creations. So I'm just trying to get used to this, but I like that I can score with this, and I probably could score here too, but I'm just trying it out and see. All right, anyhow, so we have this one. So we've got 2 score lines on 3 sides. We're going to cut at a slight angle up to that first score line, I guess through the first to the second score line here, and then the same over here. So it's at a slight angle, and we have, when we're done, almost a tic-tac-toe board. Not quite, but anyhow, so there's that. And since I'm mitering, I'm going to bevel this and this, and then I'll fold and burnish on my score lines. And we'll do it here as well. And then what I like to do, and I think this is why I came up with the insert, is to help hold it all together. What I like to do, I was saying, is add a dab of glue here and put this together before I put it on the page. You want to make sure that these sides are straight up and down when you glue it. It might be easier to use a glue dot or something like that rather than wet glue that you have to hold. You can always turn it upside down and burnish it in here, but I find that tedious. I'm going to miter here. This is the top. And also, Another fun thing that we got from the retreat is another corner rounder. This is We Are Memory Keepers. I'm using the 10mm one, and round the corners. I like to round the corners of flaps that go into pockets. You have to remember to round the corners of your decorative paper though as well. And I normally would wait until I am getting ready to add the pattern paper, but just for illustration's sake, I'm going to take this 5 by 5 3/4 and add this to the tab of our top flap. And then, all right, make sure I get it right. All the tabs will go there. And then I just add this other piece into it, just stick it inside it. And then we could glue all this together. I'm going to glue the bottom tab on. And then I'll add glue here and here to glue the side tabs on. But I have to turn it upside down because we've got that gusset. I want to make sure this is lined up straight. So I'll burnish, sticking my bone folder inside. Whoops, this needs to go down a little. Make sure this is perpendicular, so straight up and down. There we go. Okay. So there is our little gusseted pocket, and this will go on the paper once we've put on our pattern paper. And we're going to be putting it about a 1/2 inch from the left side, which is the open side. And then this is where we'll have our strip of stamps. So that is how to do the back of page 2. All right, the front of page 3 has this flap, which as a focal point, I used this frame. It opens up that way, and then there's a small flap here. But there's more. This actually is a whole flap that opens to the left. There's this, and then there's this. This is all on the front of page 3. So if you're going to do a mini album with 2 pages, I would say this would be one of them, just because there's a lot of features in here and it makes it seem like there's a lot of interaction, which there is. All right, let's do this. All right, blank page, front of page 3. So what we'll need for that is one piece that is 8 by 12 and one piece that is 7 by 8. All right, with the 12-inch side at the top, we're going to score at 1/2, 3/4, and 9 1/4. And then there's a 7 by 8 piece you'll need. With the 7-inch side at the top scored 1/2 inch. We're going to attach this. All right, this is going to go like this. So we'll fold and burnish this 8x12 piece. So this side, move this out of the way. From the score line, the 9 1/4 inch score line, we're going to fold that to the left. I'm going to turn this over and fold these two score lines up. I'll show you. All right, so these are down and this is up. And then we have the 7x8 piece. This is going to get added right here. And then I did round these corners. I'm going to round them before I put them on. And add glue. Probably, if you didn't fold and burnish like I did, it might be easier to put on before you fold and burnish. But let's do as I say, not as I do. So this is going to the second score line on the left-hand side. So you have the half and then the 3/4. So it's put it to the right of that 3/4 inch score line and fold and and burnish. So we've got that. And this is going to go onto the left-hand side of the page. So I had the 1/4 inch gusset here just because I had a lot of interaction going on this page and I wanted it to have room. All right, so I'm just putting this 1/2 inch down and then this 1/4 inch is over to the left of the page. So when all said and done, that 1/4 inch is right up against the side of the page. Okay, so here's what you need for the back of the flap on the front of page 3. You'll need one piece that's 6 1/8 by 4 1/8, and one piece that's 6 5/8 by 4 1/8. The one that's 6 5/8, we're going to just simply score at 1/2 inch. I was thinking, why did I make these so small? It was hard to get a photo on. And I realized the reason I did that was because I made it the size of this element. I wanted a lot more of the butterflies around to show, and I figured you can still crop down your photos and put inside this photo mat. So anyhow, that's why I did that. I knew there was a reason. All right, so I'm going to fold and burnish on that score line. I'm going to add glue to that inside tab and simply take this piece and put it right up against, let me go this way, right up against our score line, making sure everything's perfectly even, and fold that down. And then again, once the decorative paper is on, you can just adhere it to the decorative paper. If you want to, you can glue it on 3 sides onto the decorative paper and make a little tuck spot for another element, whatever you want to do. So I will put this aside. Actually, what I'm going to do here is add a little bit of this. It's not permanent, so I'll just put it on here so I remember that's there. And then let's work on the rest of the front of page 3. So you'll need a couple of pieces. One is 6 by 4, one is 7 1/2 by 7 1/2, and one that is 7 1/2 by 6. So I'll grab my scoreboard, the 7 1/2 by 6 with the 6-inch side at the top, score at 1/2 inch. 7 1/2 by 7 1/2. Yes, with the 7 1/2 inch side at the top, score at 1/2 inch. The 4 by 6, 6 by 4, do it this way. With the 6-inch side, score at 1/2 inch. And again, I made this a little smaller than a normal photo because I was putting an element on and I wanted to make sure that the element fit onto the page without any uneven borders. Now, if you're making this for specific photos and you have those photos in mind, feel free to adjust this to fit your photos. All right, this is the base page of 3. We have that flap over to the left. We're going to first take our 7.5 by 7.5 inch and add glue to that tab. And we're going to put this, it's going to go equal to the side and the top, the right side and the top. The 7.5 by 6, glue to the tab. Oh, no, no. I'm changing my mind. I'm going to move this 1/2 inch over, so I'll re-glue this. And the reason is I didn't want these to be matchy-matchy right on top of each other. So this is going to go 1/2 inch over. So it's 1/2 inch on each side. All right, now this one is going to go over to the right side. So you see some of it peeking out. So you see this, and then this sort of looks like a stair step. So we have this, and then this. Now, if you'll notice, get a white piece of paper. Over here, you see that little square sticking out. I'm going to simply cut that off. I didn't do a good job of cutting, but I wanted to show you that. So now that is better. Now this, I'll open this up. We're going to glue onto the bottom, and we're going to have it about 1 inch from the right-hand side. I wanted this to be our focal point. And also it gives you room to put a magnetic closure here. So you could put a magnet on the inside here and then put that like that. So that is, and then also a magnet here if you want. That is the front of page 3. All right, we're going to do the back of page 3, and it is just one of these elements. And I told you I had shown you, I think, on the back of page 1, another one just like it. I changed how I made it, so this one might be an easier version. I did add a little piece of, I had some purple seam binding from Country Craft Creations. I added it onto there just to make it so you know that that opens, although I'm sure anyone who knows mini albums will know that that opens. All right, so for that you'll need 2 pieces of 5.5 by 6 3/8. I'll take one and put the 6 3 aside at the top and score at 1 inch. This is going to go on the back of page 3. Now, I am adding glue to this 1 inch tab, and I'm going to line these pieces up one on top of each other. One right on top of each other. There we go. So you simply have that opens. And again, when you put it on the paper, if you want to, you can glue it on 3 sides and make it a tuck spot, or just put it down on top of the decorative paper once you've done that. So that is all there is to the back of page 3. All right, the front of page 4. We have a pocket. I haven't done pockets uh, before in this album. There's a little folder going in that pocket. I like the idea of using the small paper pads are 8x8. So I made this so you can cut it in half and have a 4, and I cut it down a little so it didn't stick over the top. So that's why we have that in the pocket. But this is just a flap. The back of the flap is this piece. So that is on the back of the flap of page 4. And then this is on the base page of 4. It simply is these 2 pieces, and this piece has a pocket in it. And I should have put this little ephemera down just a little bit, but that holds the pocket together. So that is all the front of page 4. So let's start with that. Okay, so for the front of page 4, we're just going to do this a couple steps at a time. You'll need a piece that's 8.5x8 and a piece that's 4x9. The 8.5x8, we're putting the 8.5 side at the top, and we're scoring at 1/2 inch. The 4x9, we're going to make a pocket, so score with the 9-inch side at the top at 1/2 inch and at 8.5, and rotate so the 4-inch side's at the top and score at 1/2 inch. I made these pockets this size because of the paper that was left over. All right, so I'm going to take the pocket. Let's miter this first. So I'm just going to simply cut across the X caused by the score lines. And since we're mitering, let's miter the top. And fold and burnish on the score lines. All right, so I'm going to take my pocket and attach it to the bottom of this flap. Now this flap is 8 inches wide. It's actually an 8x8 square once we've, oops, get down there. Once we've scored it, which is not the size of our base page. Our base page is 8.5x8. I wanted it a little smaller on purpose. So if you're saying, oh, that's not the size of the base page, there's a reason for that. I'm grabbing a little piece of some packing tape. All right, and I'm taking some packing tape and putting it over here, which didn't go as well as it should have. But still, it'll do what it's supposed to do. Why do I do that? If you're new to me or Country Craft Creations, because I learned this from Tamara. We do this so when you put something in the pocket, it doesn't get hung up right here at this ledge. It just sort of goes in a little more smooth than that. And then that way you can use a smaller piece of paper than full size. But if I remember correctly, I used a full size piece of decorative paper on here. All right, and then here is our base page. So this is going to go on the left-hand side of the base page. I just got glue all over, everywhere. To the left side, line it up top and bottom. You'll need something to clean up the glue if you're messy like me. There we go. All right, then I have for the next part, a piece that's 7 by 8 and a piece that is 3.5 by 8. We're going to, with the 7-inch side at the top of the scoreboard, score it 1/2 inch. And with the 3.5 side at the top of the scoreboard, score it 1/2 inch. This 3.5 by 8, I am going to round the corners opposite where our score line is, because it's the top of a flap, and I like to have my, or top of, yeah, I like to have them rounded. Okay, if you want, you can miter the corners. Let's do that. Oh, since I did it for one, I guess I got to do it for the other. And then fold and burnish. I mean, really, that's a good practice to do, so your paper doesn't always show, but I don't know about you, but I never see it. Once you put the decorative paper on, everything's good. So that'll go on that flap, line it up to the left of the score line, keep it a 1/16 of an inch away from that score line so it doesn't hit it when you open it. But we are going to have a double circle closure to keep it all together. Now this needs to be lined up with that first piece we put down. And there we go. All right, so what I like to do, so I remember, is take a pencil or something and put my little circle there. So I remember that's where I wanted my little circle closure. So there's that. All right, now for actually the base page of the front of page 4, we will need 2 pieces. They both say the same, but they're not. Yes, they are. That are 4.5 by 6.5. We're going to take our scoreboard and we're going to score both of them with the 6.5 side at the top at 1/2 inch. Oh, and we have the 5.5 by 4-inch piece. We're going to put the 5.5 side at the top, score it 1/2, 4-inch side at the top, score it 1/2, and 5.5 side at the top, score it 1/2, because we're making a pocket. I will miter on the top corners and right against the X. And fold and burnish. All right, so we have one of these. We'll do it this side because I don't like the, nah, we'll do it here. So we have one of these and the score line is at the bottom. I'm going to adhere this. I'll put glue on this 1/2 inch tab. And this is going to go up to that score line. So there's 1/2 inch below here on that flap. You could put tape in there. I'm not going to because I'll know. I'll add pattern paper to go all the way through. Because at this point, whoops, we still have a good amount of pattern paper. So this will go here. All right, now what we're going to do is line this up an inch and a half from this score line. And that's where I'm going to put this tab. So I'll add glue to this tab. Or that's where I'm going to put this flap, I mean. So right about here. And make sure it is straight up and down. I'm grabbing my T-square because I want to make sure it's straight up and down. You know, most of the times I will just wing it, but not all the time. Not all the time. All right, I'm going to turn this to a side. I'll take this other 4.5 by 6 inch piece with the flap or the folded tab, the top. I'm going to line this up with this piece and put this right at the top. It gives you an interactive element, can break up the pattern paper, but it gives you just a fun element to look at. And then if you remember, if you don't, I'll remind you. You'll need a piece that's 3.25 by 4.25 to put one of the cut aparts on. These I just cut out, stuck in the pocket. But what happens is, this is a piece from the ephemera. Isn't it pretty? It's just a row of flowers. Now I cut out, I think there were 3 flowers at the side. I just sort of fussy cut it. Wasn't a big deal. It wasn't a lot of fussy cutting, but I left this big zinnia here and the butterfly, and I cut off, I think there was a yellow one and a purple one and something else, the border. I cut that to make it fit onto this piece. Should have put it down, maybe cut that a little, but this cut apart will hold that all together. If you don't want to go through that, or you don't have the cut aparts, you can use a magnet. It wouldn't hurt my feelings. I would probably do it this way. Put a magnet here, and you could put this in the pocket then. However you want to do that. And then the inside of that is, I mean, it's just all flat, basically. All right, that's the front of page, oh, this, huh? Wait, there's this. This is 8.5 by 7 5/8. I scored it at 4.25. Okay, now that's that. All right, the back of page 4. We are almost there, people. All right, this is just a pocket with a flap, a side-loading pocket with a flap. I do have a magnet closing this. If you wanted to, you could do the 2 circle closures. I wanted something clean so it wouldn't mess up with my waterfall. And then inside this, I wanted to use one of the cut aparts, so we have a large folder inside. Easy schmeezy. Let us do it. So for that, we will need 3 pieces. One that is 6.5 by 9, one that is 4.5 by 8, and one that is 5.5 by 12. Well, let's do the 5.5 by 12. That's easy. 12 inside at the top, score at 6. There's our folder. Yay, that was easy. The 4.5 by 8 with the 4.5 side at the top, score at 1/2 inch. The 6.5 by 9 with the 9-inch side, score at 1/2 and at 8.5, and rotate with the 6.5 side at the top, simply score at 1/2 inch. Cut across those score lines. I will add glue to this bottom tab, and that gets adhered to the right side of the paper. And then I'm going to glue this, tape this with my packing tape. Yeah, I don't have it going all the way across. I know my folder in here is really small. And then we'll glue the 2 what normally would be side tabs, but it's the top and bottom tab. And then this, of course, is going to go where it's going to go. I'll fold and burnish on the score line. Get out my handy dandy corner rounder, the 10mm one. You could use smaller if you want. And this will go up at the top of the page to make our flap. So again, I used a magnet here to remember. I'll do that in magnet. All right, that is the back of page 4. Okay, now I have one final feature to show you. I have not given you measurements for things like, oh, like here, you could put a pocket. I just glued this down on 3 sides so you can insert something in there. I didn't give a measurement for that. Just use your scraps. There's a couple of places in the book. But I will give you measurements for these photo mats. So I meant to have a smaller piece of decorative paper here at the top. I'm going to give you measurements for both. So these are 7 3/4 by 8 1/2. If you have the 100-pound artisan cardstock, I would use that. If you don't, it's no big deal. That 87-pound is pretty fabulous. I rounded all 4 corners, and then I cut out of the white cardstock, the smooth cardstock that's on Country Craft Creations website. I cut that down to 7 1/4 by 7 5/8. I'm going to quickly add one. You'll use more glue than I do. You don't have to add this, but I like to have, I've done it without, and to me it looks a little naked if you don't have anything. Now, if your book is getting too chunky, then you don't want anything on there. But if you've got room in the book, and if you followed this tutorial pretty closely, you should have room. I mean, I made it a 2.5-inch spine just so we wouldn't have alligator mouth. So I'm putting that on. We've got just a 1/16 of an inch on the 3 sides. So here, this is room for 5/8 by, excuse me, 7 1/4. So you could just put the pattern paper on there. Now this one measures, this is 1 1/2. Oh, by 7 5/8, not 7 1/4. This would be 5/8 by 7 5/8. This is 1 1/2 by 7 5/8. What I did is I took some 3-inch pieces and just cut them in half. Once I cut them down to 7 5/8. So that is for the hidden photo mats. Yeah, this has a bigger margin on it. So I like the smaller margin. It also helps you put it in the book a little better. So that is the hidden pages to go in the pocket pages. All right, now I'm going to show you a little bit about decorating the book. Let's start on the front cover. There was a bunch of, I really wasn't sure what I was going to do with this front cover. After I put everything on, I felt like it needed something to splatter or not to splatter. I did splatter. Let me see if I can get this a little closer for you. It's going to be autofocus. And it's a little darker, but can you see the splatters here? I tried to keep it, I wanted it mainly around here, but what I should have done is not put on all the decorations and and then splattered and then add more decorations because I didn't want splatter on everything. I don't know. I just did. So let me show you some pictures. This is it plain. This is it with the next step. I used the frames and layered them. I built it up with pieces of chipboard. If you have Country Craft Creations has those thicker foam dimensional adhesive, that would be fabulous. I didn't get that. I had no room in my adhesive drawer for it. I fussy cut black cardstock around this feature element. I added the flowers with hot glue. I have some of the rub-ons here, under here, some here also. And then I added these three little pieces up there. So that is how I did it. Can you see how much dimension is on that cover? I mean, it comes out about half an inch. Comes out more like 3/4 of an inch because of the flower, so I didn't mind having a lot of dimension. But that is what I did. Oh, this was a cut apart I put in the frame. This was just a piece of scrap paper I put in the frame. That's one of the chipboard pieces, and that's one of the ephemera pieces. So that is how I made my cover. Now let me take you inside. Oh, one more thing. I did color these flowers a little bit. Let me show you. These are beautiful flowers. They've got a little bit of glitz to them. They're by Little Birdie. They're in Country Craft Creations. This is what I have left. But you see, this was this color. I wanted to go for something like this and keep the lightness there. So I did add a little bit of broken china. I just put some on a piece of I put it on my work surface, added some water, and just used a paintbrush and put it on there. So I wanted to tell you that little secret. Don't forget to order these flowers. They're fabulous. Okay. Uh, okay, so this was a cut apart. Here's a hint. I backed it on black cardstock. Before you back it on the cardstock, trace it onto a piece of pattern paper. Okay, I'm going to show you what I mean. So we have this. I'm looking for a piece of pattern paper. Here we go. I'm going to use a fine tip marker. You might be able to see it a little better. We'll do it here. Okay, so let's say I want to put this and put a magnet behind it. So I'll need a piece of pattern paper and I need a piece of cardstock in between it. I'm going to trace this. All right, and for those of you who don't like fussy cutting, I hear you. You feel like it takes forever. But you know what? Time yourself. It really doesn't take forever. So I traced it onto the plain side of this. I'm going to fussy cut it. You can time me. I'm going to time me too. I'm going to try to stay true to this line. Sometimes I just don't mind if I go outside the line and make it a little more swish when there's a swirl or whatever. But I'm going to try to stay pretty close and still do this fairly quickly. So far it's been 6 seconds. I'm looking at my timer on my camera. We'll go in here, come out, and straight across. Yay. Okay. So there is that. So pretty darn close, right? There's the back side. You can see there's a little white showing, so I was a little close on it. But that's okay. That's not going to be a a problem. I'm going through my garbage to find a piece of black cardstock. And I would glue it down. I don't know what I'm going to do with this, so I'm not going to glue it. Oh, this is going to be a little bit too small. But you know what? For our purposes, it'll be okay. So now I glued that original one, and I'm going to try to stay about a 1/16 of an inch from the edge. Now, here I don't mind if some areas are a little bit more, some are a little bit less. It's okay. When I say a 1/16 of an inch, if I go 1/8 of an inch, that's okay. And especially here where there's bumps, I'm not gonna worry about if I don't get in all those bumps and crevices. It's more of an artistic interpretation of this. Okay, so there is our black outline. And then the magic is, here is our piece. Once I put this on, this will be pretty darn close. It fits inside because it's the same size as this. So the reason I'm showing you that is because in a couple of places in the book, here, there might be another one, but for the most part, that's it. I put a magnet in here, so I had to have pattern paper on the back, and I wanted it to be close to the same footprint as this. So I wanted to show you that's how I did that. Nothing fancy about this. I cut this paper down to about 3 5/8. Then there's a strip here, and this one is 4 1/2. And of course, since this is 9 inches, this paper inside is 8 7/8 wide. So there's that. I took a piece of pattern paper, cut it the height, and then cut it down to 1 inch strips. Now this is not as seamless as the one in the back. When you put this down, you almost can see the pattern. You see the hummingbird there. Now, like the top of his head is missing a little bit. It's here. But what I did here is cut this. It wasn't 1/2 an inch. It was 5/8 of an inch. And that sort of flowed a little more smoothly than the others. Now, you don't have to use the pattern paper here. You could just use plain paper if you wanted the decorative paper or the patterns and solids. I don't know if I gave you the measurement of this. It does have a 1/4 of an inch gusset. This is 1 1/2 inches, and it was probably by 5 1/2. Then I scored it 1/2 and then 3/4. Fussy cut this out, glued it on top, added the magnet here, corresponding magnet, put the paper on, and there we go with that. This has the gusset. It likes to stay flat. It doesn't like the gusset. See, here's the gusset. It doesn't like the gusset there. But again, I glued this onto this paper. There's a magnet here, which corresponds to there. 4 1/4 by 6 1/4 photo mat, 4 1/2 by 6 1/2 black cardstock below it, so it pops up. That is from the rub-ons. That is from the chipboard pieces. I had some black seam binding in my stash that I used. Here you can see I cut this from the border strip paper, and then just a scrap. I just felt like it needed something there. You could round this if you wanted to. I didn't. Nothing exciting there. Blue there. Blue there. I love that blue. This was just pattern paper to fit on there, which is 8 3/8 by 7 7/8. And then our 4 1/4 by 6 1/4 on 4 1/2 by 6 1/2 piece of ephemera. I just left that there because it was so pretty. And then that That's just a piece of the border strip. It already had this. This is from the 8x8 pad. This I put on Patterns and Solids. A piece of white cardstock with the rub-ons. Did I leave it open? I did not leave this open for a tuck spot. So this is the same way I cut this out and cut out a piece of this plain paper for the back. There's a magnet in here and a magnet here. And then there's also a magnet here that corresponds with that. If you didn't put this magnet, this might flop. Probably wouldn't, but I wanted to be sure. All right, should see how this is decorated. So this is just a 2-inch piece of the Patterns and Solids, I believe, or it might be the back of this paper. I don't remember. Loved how this all looked. When I first did it, it looked really plain, but once you put on the mats, and that's a chipboard element, and that was from the ephemera, it just jazzed it up a bunch. I added a little bit of rub-on right there. I could have done another photo mat here, but that was just so pretty. I love that paper. And then there is our hidden photo mat. So this has below it Patterns and Solids, the orange. This was from a cut apart I cut down, and this is a piece of ephemera on top. This was like the postcard, and there's lines here. So I wanted to sort of cover that up so it wasn't so postcardy. So that is the stamp set in the ephemera onto a piece of 1 13/16 piece of the coral Patterns and Solids by 7 3/16 maybe. It's just a smidgen smaller. And then the black, I think the measurement is in the guide. I have a little piece of ribbon here just so you know it opens. This is here because when I put the magnet down, the sticky was on it and it stuck on there. It was a mistake, but you can't tell because I fixed it. This is my least favorite paper on here. This is from the 12x12 Patterns and Solids. That's from the 8x8. It must have been on the back of one of the papers. Like I've said, I'm not a huge fan of orange. Here it doesn't bother me because it's sort of a pretty color. But you know, I think it works with this layout because this that's the focal point. Your eye goes to that. It ignores the fact that this is all orange. Anyhow, so that is Patterns and Solids with the writing. That is more of the Patterns and Solids. That's the plain. It's about 50/50. I know I was using scraps. That's plain Patterns and Solids, and that's from the border strip. That's the tag. I think I already talked about, not the tag, the frame. Talked about where that came from. I added just a little piece of orange paper on the back. There's that real pretty paper that corresponds with this paper. I guess that's the back of that paper. Isn't that pretty? It's got orange and coral and pink in it. It just blends nicely. And then this is just a piece of the ephemera. That's from the border strip. That, and then this. And that was a piece. I feel like it needs something here. I don't know what. So it's going to stay the way it is. Maybe I'll go back and add a rub-on or something. That's one of the border strips, which has the orange and coral in it, which to me worked with this. And then it toned down that orange. That goes like that. We have this. That opens like that. Oops. There is a butterfly rub-on here and a butterfly rub-on there. That is just gorgeous. I did leave it open to put something there, but I never did put anything there. This is this size because this was one of the 3x4 cut aparts, and I wanted as much of an even border around it. I suppose if I made this 4.5 by 6.5, it would have been a 7-inch piece. It would have come higher. There would have been more blue. That would have been okay too. Patterns and Solids. These are just scrap pieces. This actually is probably sideways, but you can't tell. Isn't that beautiful? That's a piece of ephemera. That's a little border strip because I need a teeny little 1/4 inch spacing here that opens. This is really big for this page, but I didn't know where else to put this. Could have put it on here, but then I don't know. I don't know. I didn't. I guess I could have put something here. I still can. This I put a butterfly rub-on magnet there to hold it. There is that. Did I leave that open? No. Okay, there's that little piece. This is my zinnia page. I love zinnias. Never could grow them in Florida. It's too humid. So for those of you that can grow zinnias, more power to you. Love the hummingbird. I saw one today. I'm in Idaho. There are some beautiful birds. I saw a hummingbird. It had green on its back. Y'all can tell me what kind it is. I have no idea. There's our little folder. I could put a butterfly here or something. Something on the back. I just like the paper. I didn't mind leaving it alone. And then this, of course, is just from the border paper that I just glued a little bit. I didn't know if this purple would overpower this page because the background of the zinnia is sort of a muted purple, but in small doses it's okay. I did fussy cut a piece of the purple to back this. This has actually holes in it. I glued it down. You couldn't tell if I didn't tell you. And after I did it, then I realized I had those brads. I could have used those purple doodlebug brads on there, but didn't. Oh, I don't think I told you how I make these. And I know it's easy, and people are like, really? You don't have to tell me that. But other people tell me I do. This is, I usually use a smaller one. This is a 1-inch circle punch. I'm just taking a piece of scrap paper out of my garbage. I cut 4 in my cardstock. I'm going to cut an extra. And then I do cut the pattern paper. I take my ruler, taking a white pen, and I'm going to try to determine where the center of this is. That's not the center. But if I keep making enough lines going across where I think the center is, eventually I'm going to figure out where the center is. And that's where I make a hole. Oops. I mean, you can also do this. Fold it in half and fold it in half the other way. Easier said than done, isn't it? There we go. And where those 2 lines are is the center. I'll use that for my hole punch. I'm going to do a larger hole here for a second, just so you can see. And now I know where my hole is. So I just do that. Then I'll glue 2 on top, 1 on top of the other. Punch my hole with the smaller hole punch. This is a 1/8 hole punch. That was off center. I will, can I get a 1-inch out of here? It's pretty close. It's not exact. And glue, I might, excuse me, I might ink around the edges because the white will show and that'll bother me. Then I've got my little hole here. Of course, I grabbed the one that was off center. And make a hole. When I go to the page, I'll put this on a page, grab my pencil, make a mark. Of course, I'll measure it side to side to make sure it's centered. And then I'll add my brad onto the pattern paper before I glue it down. I might put a piece of tape or score tape or something on the back of where those brad's legs are, and then add that there. On the bottom one, I usually take my seam binding, or not seam, yeah, sometimes seam binding, or twine, or whatever you use. And when I make the hole in the pattern paper, I pull it up through the hole, tape it down, glue it also, and then this is permanently attached to there. So when I'm going like this, it will stay in place. There's a lot of explanation on how to make 2 circle punches, but people have asked me. And if you're new to this, there's no harm in asking. It's no big deal. All right, to continue. I already talked about decorating this, that this was a piece of the ephemera. I love these zinnias too. There's a nice little pocket for you. This is just pieces of my pattern paper and the butterfly. Can you see those zinnias below? That was what was cut off at the edge of here. I sort of glued that so the hummingbird so you don't see it. But that goes like that. I guess I could have pulled this up a little so then this piece would hold that down, but I don't like that to happen. I don't mind that. There's our photo mat. Nothing exciting about this. Well, I guess. Let's look. So blue, that's from the border strip. That's from the patterns and solids. There is that. This is from that 12 by 12 piece that had the 4 cut aparts on it. And then I took one of the strips from the cut apart. I cut it off of here and just put it on the top, and then just the white cardstock in between, and that on the inside. So there's that. That's held down with a magnet. This, I just used this paper, and this is a piece of ephemera. I wanted this to look like one stalk of flowers, and the hummingbird was about to land on the flowers or suck nectar from the flowers or whatever it is hummingbirds do. This is backed onto, this is a cut apart onto a piece of white cardstock, onto a piece of the blue patterns and solids. And then I already talked about that. It's 5/8 of an inch. Lots of photo space there. Of course, a magnet here. And this is the same as what we had done. Whoops. Here. Blue patterns and solids. And I think I already talked about this. It's just from the 12 by 12. I think, yes, I'm pretty sure this is from the 12 by 12. So I wasn't sure if this was the back of that. I guess it is. Piece of the patterns and solids. It was a scrap. It actually doesn't meet in the middle, but you can't tell. I put a teeny piece of seam binding there. And then this a teeny piece of seam binding on this chipboard piece. And it's probably out of focus because it's higher up. And that brings me back to that. I think that is it. That is what I wanted to show you, the final details to decorate this album. Yes, I do not have a tutorial on decorating it. That would be tedious for you. You would be tired of my voice by that time. But if you have any questions, let me know. If there's something I left out, let me know. If I missed a measurement, let me know. Be kind. I do my best, but sometimes I might write 5/8 instead of 3/8, and I don't mind correcting it. We'll correct it, and others will know, and we'll move on. It's no big deal. But that is it. Loved doing this. Don't forget to check out all the items in the description box that are available at Country Craft Creations. Thank you so much for watching, and have a fabulous day.